Sergio Pérez made one of the most high-profile moves in the Formula 1 driver market for this season, moving to Red Bull to become Max Verstappen's fourth teammate in as many seasons. It's been a challenging start to the season for Perez as he gets to grips with his new Honda-powered car. But looking at the current state of play after 4 rounds of the 2021 championship, will Sergio Pérez have an influence on the championship fight? Let's have a look. My name's Andy and this is Behind the Drive. The question that everybody asked when Sergio Pérez signed for Red Bull was whether the Mexican driver would be able to perform better than the previous drivers that had occupied that seat. Both Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly have been dropped from that seat in the past, and given they're both undoubtedly talented drivers, it begs the question as to whether it's the drivers or the team that's the problem. It's safe to say that both Gasly and Albon didn't really influence the championship during their time at Red Bull, and quite frankly they rarely saw the back of Max Verstappen's car on a Sunday afternoon. So in this video I'll have a closer look at how Perez is getting on so far, and whether he's capable of influencing the championship fight. And as always, if you enjoyed this video then please leave it a like and hit the subscribe button for more videos just like this one throughout the 2021 season. And while you're there, if you want to hear more about my thoughts about the current events in Formula 1, you can follow me on Twitter. The link will be in the description below. Perez's 2021 performance so far. Currently Perez sits 6th in the Drivers' Championship standings after 4 rounds. Now this probably isn't where he'd want to be at this stage in the season, but it's worth noting that he's only 9 points behind Lando Norris in 4th, which the Mexican driver could easily make up with a couple of good results. So it isn't too bad. However, based on performances so far this year, it could well be the case that Red Bull have the quickest car on the grid right now at some circuits. This means that Sergio Pérez needs to be offering more competition to Mercedes this season, or at least being a rear gunner for Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. So is Perez doing this so far? Well, let's have a quick look at his 2021 results to determine if he's doing the job that the team needs him to do. Starting in Bahrain, the Red Bulls looked utterly dominant all weekend, and Verstappen even put his Red Bull on pole by almost 0.4 of a second. However, Sergio Pérez took a risk in Q2 in an attempt to make it through to the final qualifying session on medium tyres, the optimum tyre choice for the start of the race. After running wide at turn 4 and exceeding track limits in his first run, his time was deleted, putting additional pressure on his second run. And this is where his inexperience in the car was clear, as in hindsight he should have just bolted on the soft compound tyres and taken his medicine in order to guarantee his opportunity to put the Red Bull car on the front row of the grid. Instead, he ended up down in 11th and out in Quali 2, and never gave himself the opportunity to go for the pole position time. Although, it wouldn't have made much difference in the end as his car decided to give up on him on the formation lap and shut down. A quick reboot of the electronic system allowed him to limp back and start from the pit lane, and he made an impressive drive to come back through the field to take 5th place in the race. So a strong debut for the Mexican driver in his Red Bull car, although it was definitely not faultless. And it's worth noting that the Red Bulls were the quickest car by quite a long way in Bahrain, as Mercedes was still in the process of understanding and improving their car. Moving on to Imola, and almost the exact opposite happened, as Perez had an impressive qualifying to become the first of Verstappen's teammates to out-qualify him since Daniel Ricciardo in 2018. He put his car second on the grid and just over 0.03 of a second behind Lewis Hamilton on pole. An impressive showing and a performance that for many showed that he was capable of influencing the championship this season. However, his race performance saw the 31-year-old head backwards down the order, whilst his teammate went on to win the race in the changeable conditions. Perez ended up 11th after a 10-second stop-go penalty for taking back some positions under the safety car. A pretty disappointing display and a shocking mistake to overtake behind the safety car, considering he's in his 11th season in Formula 1. In Portugal, Perez achieved 4th position in qualifying, but it must be said that it was at a track where Mercedes looked particularly strong and the Red Bull cars were on the back foot. So a decent enough showing with Perez doing the job that's expected of him in that seat. Come race day, he didn't really look like threatening the 3 cars ahead of him as he lost places to Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, which cost him valuable time. He did recover it back to finish 4th in the Grand Prix, and whilst I would say it's a good haul of points, I wouldn't say that Checo was able to influence the front 3 as he and the team would have wanted. And then at the 4th race in the season in Spain, he struggled in Quali 3, only putting his Red Bull car 8th on the grid, while Verstappen was just under 0.04 of a second off pole position. So not a great showing for Perez, and it once again exposed his inexperience in his new car. And with his Red Bull out of position, at a track where overtaking is challenging at the best of times, he managed to recover back to 5th place at the checkered flag. So another disappointing race in which his teammate led a large proportion of the laps. Now I would say that for a driver that's just 4 races into his first season with a new team, Perez is doing a good job. I think it's fair to say that getting used to a new team environment, a new teammate, all alongside a new car and power unit, it's not easy at the best of times. Especially considering Checo hasn't gone through this learning process since 2014, where the new cars and power units were different for all the drivers anyway. So I would say that he's done well, and has shown signs that once he's used to his car, he'll be capable of delivering a minimum of 4th place week in, week out. And on occasions, he could be capable of interfering with those top 3 positions. I'm not going to compare Checo with the drivers that have preceded him in that second Red Bull seat at this point. I think it's just a bit too early in the season, and the context of where the car is on each occasion probably means it isn't a fair comparison across the years. But there are definitely signs that this year, Perez could influence the championship fight, not from the perspective of being a contender, but more from offering support to Max Verstappen, especially by offering a counter strategy, a point that I'll look at next. Built-in traction control. Arguably, the skill that Perez is best known for is his tyre management. Even at his debut race for Sauber in 2011, he finished in 7th place in Australia, and he was the only driver in the field who managed to successfully complete a one-stop strategy. Although sadly this result was taken away from the Mexican driver for technical infringements on the Sauber cars. But right from the off, he made an impression on Formula 1 teams and fans alike with an impressive display that differentiated him from the rest of the drivers on the grid. This performance was followed up with a number of impressive showings in 2012, including his race from 12th on the grid to 2nd at Monza. Checo started on the hard tyres and managed to extend his first stint to 29 laps, and was even leading the race for a few laps as other drivers around him made their pit stops. Switching to the medium tyres for his second stint allowed him to be faster than the cars around him towards the end, and ultimately allowed him to achieve a 2nd place finish, just 4 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, who took the win. Not only this, but with some additional laps, he could have eventually even overtaken the British driver for the win. So ultimately, once again, his tyre management and ability to carve his way through the field created an opportunity for a podium finish, and on another day, he could well have taken the full 25 points. Once Perez moved to Force India in 2014, his immense ability to manage the tyres continued, and so did his ability to pull a result from his midfield car and take advantage of chaotic races. Take for example his performance in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in 2018. After a difficult start to the season, Perez qualified in 8th position on the grid, and early on in the race he received a 5-second penalty for a collision with Kimi Räikkönen. Despite this, he did manage to keep himself going when so many other drivers were making mistakes ahead of him. As a result, the Mexican driver was in the right place at the right time to take advantage of the fact that many front-running cars ahead of him ended up retiring from the race. He went through to take a podium finish and score 15 points for the midfield team. And then finally you can look at Perez's performance at the Sakhir Grand Prix in 2020. We all remember this one where the Racing Point driver's car was spun around into turn 4 on the first lap, and Perez was running in last place after that first time around. But then came the ultimate comeback, as he raced his way up the order and was on for a solid podium finish until a mistake from the Mercedes team in the pit stops allowed Checo to take the lead of the Grand Prix, which he went on to convert for his first win after 190 Grand Prix starts. It was a performance that Red Bull just couldn't ignore, and it shows how Sergio Pérez on his day is one of the best drivers on the grid. The now technical director of Aston Martin, Andrew Green, described Perez as having built-in traction control, and this is evident based on the performances that I've mentioned here. But it's worth noting that the examples I've mentioned here are where Perez has managed to pull out a podium or an impressive comeback drive. But there are also countless occasions through the years where Perez manages to come back to finish between 4th and 7th, scoring solid points on each occasion. For me, Checo is the master of quietly coming back to finish just beyond the frontrunners, and this can be seen by the fact that he's always there or thereabouts in the Drivers' Championship, finishing 7th or best of the rest in 2016 and 17, and then an 8th place finish in 2018, and then he even managed to come back to 4th in 2020. So there's no doubt that Perez has the ability to pull results from his Red Bull machinery based on his past performance, And we've already seen his tyre management capabilities at a few races this season, as I've already mentioned. In Portugal, for example, where he was on the radio planning to extend his stint for 10 laps. A remarkable performance at times this season that will put Perez in positions to pressure the Mercedes team in terms of strategy, so potentially influencing the championship. Can he influence the championship? So will Sergio Pérez influence the championship fight this season? Well, we've seen glimmers of hope from some of his performances already this year, plus a huge number of impressive examples from his 10-year Formula 1 career that puts the odds of him pulling out strong performances in his favour. Now I think based on how the season has gone so far, we can be confident that Perez won't be in the fight for the Drivers' Championship itself. I think it's a safe bet that it's going to be either Verstappen or Hamilton winning that this season. But to influence the title fight, in my opinion, Perez needs to be there to hassle the frontrunners with the intention of forcing Mercedes into strategy mistakes, and, in particular, beating Valtteri Bottas on a regular basis. This way, Red Bull will be offering more competition in the Constructors' Championship and allowing Verstappen to compete with Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship. And I think we can be quite confident that Sergio Pérez will be capable of exactly this once he gets used to his new machinery. The Mexican driver has already been commenting on the fact that he needs to adapt his driving style to suit this Red Bull car, and it seems like the reduced practice session time for this season could be influencing his ability to get the car dialed in, which is limiting his ability to get the maximum from it. It must be said that of all the drivers that have moved teams this season, it's Perez that will be given the least amount of time to get up to speed and deliver results for the Red Bull team. There's more pressure on his shoulders than any other driver right now, and it's building at each and every race, particularly given he's in a car that is capable of winning the championship. But certainly compared to Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon, there is a level of confidence in the F1 paddock that Perez is more capable of fighting at the front of the order, as he's proved before in the Racing Point car. So I'm confident that it won't take much longer for Sergio Pérez to get up to speed and compete with the cars ahead of him, taking podium finishes on a regular basis and finally breaking up that also common trio of Ham, Vert, Bott at the top of the order. So for me, Perez will absolutely influence the championship fight this season, and from a Constructors' Championship perspective, I expect it will only get closer as we go through the season. So what do you think about Sergio Pérez and whether he'll get faster through this season? And will he influence the championship? Let me know in the comments, and if you've enjoyed this video and watched this far, then be sure to leave the video a like and hit the subscribe button for more videos like this one in the future.